As you probably know, we live through a very exciting age, the age of AGI. Here's a little bit of a presentation. Let's go all the way back. I'm talking about NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, at the middle of the storm, at the center of the storm. Jensen Huang, the great CEO and founder of NVIDIA, here with the NVIDIA Rubin system, became the biggest company in the world just by driving that AI revolution. We know all this guy. Elon Musk now catching up to NVIDIA, overtaking NVIDIA as the largest chip manufacturer in the world very soon, sooner than people think. That is what we are doing here in Pioneer Alpha and Pioneerlands. And of course, Robotaxi, we are imminent, launching unsupervised all across the world, all across America, starting with Texas. Probably a few million of these things driving around very soon, and everyone will be so shocked, except for us, because we knew it. And this all climactically approaching this crazy moment in time where we have Moonbase Alpha, named after Pioneer Alpha by Elon, of course, because he's such a big fan. Just kidding. Well, Elon actually knows us, so yes, maybe he's a fan, but maybe Moonbase Alpha was not named after Pioneer Alpha. Who cares? This is all happening. And as you guys know, I have been very active in trading this whole thing, trading the revolution. And the results are pretty good. I have done this with my own money, of course, as you know. And we are looking very good. I'm very happy. Here's some insight into what's happening. We had 106% since inception, January 1st, 2024. And here is some examples what that actually means, why I call it Pioneer Alpha. By the way, I didn't start investing and trading in 2024. I started this, I don't even remember when, in 1999. So it has been a long time. I went then very heavy into options trading in 2014 or something, learned some hard lessons. It's a long story. But then predicted Tesla in 2018 very accurately, told JP Morgan, I will always remember this, in San Francisco in 2019, that everyone is not getting that Tesla is being transformed within 12 months. They were laughing at, they were not laughing at me, but secretly they were laughing at me. I know it. And then they came back begging for more a year later, because you know what happened in 2020. So very interesting. But in January 1st, 2024, I decided, okay, it's time to professionalize this. Also, I had some messy things then being concluded with my company in the genomic space. This is a long story, but that came more and more to a point where I thought, well, it's time to actually look also at some things that I think I can really do very well at, and that was Pioneer Alpha and Pioneerlands. And since then, we are looking very good. We are beating the NASDAQ over the last 2 years and 3 months, with an alpha of 47%. Okay, if you invest $1 million into the S&P, some index fund, like everyone tells you, you would have made $580,000. With us, you would have made 1.06 million from $1 million. When you look at other benchmarks, the S&P, not looking much better, actually worse than the NASDAQ. We have an alpha of $570,000 more you would have made on $1 million. You know, I don't want to brag, but I mean, look at it. The freaking Dow Jones outperformed at $750,000 over $1 million. You would have made $310,000. With us, you would have made, as I said, $1,060,000 on $1 million. On Tesla, my favorite benchmark, we outperformed Tesla itself. Of course, using Tesla. I'm using Tesla to outperform Tesla. That's the magic trick here. By actually going in and out, by using margin, by using options, you know the whole story. We outperformed Tesla with 45%, okay? And I can go on and on. You can compare us with MSCI World. A lot of people use that thing. That's a mutual fund, very common. 55%. You would be $550,000 richer with Pioneer Alpha. $550,000 richer on $1 million. And then, okay, TSLA, I don't even want to know what happened there. Yeah, 107% outperformance. So if you use TSLA, the ETF 2x Tesla, well, you would have made negative 0.61% over the last 2 years. Not too impressive. And then you have RKK, 55%, Kathy Woods beaten by 55%, and ARQ, they did pretty well. Oh yeah, they outperformed us. So I beat Kathy with 55% more, but Kathy beats me on RQ with 18%. Okay, sometimes I get outperformed by Kathy. But if I outperform her, it's bloody. Okay, so this is happening here. And of course, I thought, okay, this is pretty cool. And then some of you basically approached me, I think 6 months ago. I got the first request, like actually a bunch of them, if I can manage people's money. And I said, oh, I don't know. That sounds like stressful. And I have my own money. Why would I manage other people's money? I thought it through because it sounds, if I put in all this effort and achieve great performance, sure, it would be a nice thing to do so other people can also make more money. But I played it through and said, I don't want to do a fund. A fund is a lot of work, but for what? Of course, I can make more money, maybe, but I made enough money with trading my own money. So I thought that's not worth it. That's a lot of stress for what? A little money. So I didn't like that. But then I had an idea. One of the problems, if not the biggest problem of all, is this here. And that didn't, I was like, what is actually worth our time in Pioneerlands? What is worth my entrepreneurial time? Not a stupid fund. No one wants a fund. Like, sure, I could make everyone money and myself, but I don't like it. It's not worth the whole effort. But what is worth the effort would be to find a way to financially engineer a new product that can actually turn this entire crazy upside of the AI revolution into a more steady, high income. As you all know, that is the talk of the town. That's what everyone thinks about. That is the big miracle humanity needs. That is the big miracle Pioneerland needs. And what does it mean? What's the difference between steady high income and high returns? Well, I can tell you what the difference is. Steady is the difference. Steady is the difference. So let me show you something, what we designed. I designed this thing. This is actually the real return of the reference benchmark we developed based on the Pioneer Alpha portfolio. The blue line since July 2025, when we actually started the simulation and fine-tuning this whole thing, it's a new financial instrument. And this new financial instrument is a bond. And this bond is performance linked. I'm not going to go into all the details, but this yellow line down here is 30% CAGR. This yellow line represents 30% return annually. The upper line represents 45% annually return. And the idea of this bond is very simple. Can we force returns into a funnel? So if the returns are actually higher than 45% CAGR, no one needs more than 45% CAGR, by the way. If you make 45% a year, you will be the richest man who ever lived over time. No one ever did that long term. So this is the cap. And then the 30% is kind of the reference benchmark. And the question was, can we take these returns from Pioneer Alpha and actually construct, financially engineer a bond that keeps the returns in between? What does it mean? What happens if we actually exceed these returns? I can tell you what happens. We have a buffer, because that's exactly what happened here in September, where we had very high returns, because that exactly happens. And these high returns then go into this blue line, which is a buffer. And as you see, we nearly fully used the buffer. So the buffer, when we perform under 30%, feeds back into the bond. That's why the bond never really goes down as long as you have a buffer and can keep above that 30% line. And the miracle we achieved here, which is a true engineering miracle, we were able to deliver constant 30% annualized returns throughout the last, 9 months. Look at this, except for in the beginning when the buffer was empty. But even then, it was not very bad. The worst week we had was like a 2.5% drawdown. That was our worst week. And every other week, 0.27, 2.8, 0.5, 0.5. Every single week, this thing made money. If you compare this to the benchmarks, we have it all prepared here. Look at this. This is the S&P, right? So the look at the performance. The S&P is down. Here's Iraq, and then here's the recovery rally. But look at the bond. Throughout the whole mess, the bond kept making money, the reference bond. So isn't that beautiful? And if you look at ARK, look at this. Very extreme. ARK outperformed in the beginning and then totally crashed, right? This is exactly the difference. Here you have complete equity-based volatility. The bond keeps performing. If we can get outperformed in the beginning, but when things go bad, we keep performing. That is, this blue line you're seeing here is an engineering marble where Michael Saylor would be jealous. This is a Michael Saylor level stuff here. So maybe you guys find this boring, and that's exactly the point. We want to be boring. We want to be constant returns. That's not a promise. That's an ambition, right, of the engineering. And so far it worked beautifully, and we have a good buffer left. So that is basically what I'm saying with this whole financial instrument. And we designed this as a Luxembourg securitization vehicle. So it's based in Luxembourg. It's available to accredited investors in the United States, qualified investors in Europe. There's a 25,000 euro, Swiss franc, pound, dollar minimum. So we were able to get this relatively low, but you need to be qualified in each of these areas, like accredited in the US, qualified in, qualified in the EU. I think it's also qualified or professional in Switzerland and in UK. So each of these regions you need to see if you're qualified. We have some check boxes and checks, but if you are, then you can take a look at this whole thing. And here is what I'm doing. Let's get to the bet. Here is my bet. What I am doing, because I'm all into. My bet is, okay, here, let's go up here. Thousands have followed, open for investment, directly linked to Pioneer Alpha AI portfolio. You guys see this? Yeah. And here's my commitment. Here's what I'm going to do. I will commit $1 million to this thing, to the bond, as explained here. But here comes the important thing. 800,000 of that will just be the bond, right? So I'm the normal investor. So let's say we raise 2.4 million. I will be then 30% of the investors. If you raise 8 million, I'm going to be 10%. We won't be too much because we have to close this very quickly now in 10 days or something, because we want to move on and there are more series coming and all kinds of stuff. And we want to get this institutionalized actually going. So we build a track record. I don't want to wait too long. But very important, 200,000 of that million committed is actually a reserve buffer. And now, guys, you have to understand what I'm doing here. The 200,000 reserve buffer, they go into the portfolio, but they are reserved for feeding that portfolio if it does not perform at 30%. In other words, the 800,000 I put in are at risk. If we lose money on the portfolio, I lose money. The 200,000 are literally a bet. The 200,000 are a bet that we perform at a minimum at 30% CAGR. And if we don't, which could of course happen, if we don't, I will lose the money because the money will be taken from me, from the reserve buffer, and given to the investors to prop up these returns. You understand, if you have 2 million in this and we make 20% in year one, we're missing 10%, we're missing 200,000. We'll take that 200,000 and boom, it's given to that portfolio and it's poof, gone for me. Of course, I get some of it because I own pieces of the portfolio, depending on my share, but that I will definitely not make money on this thing. That is my bet because I think we can. I can't guarantee it, but that's why I'm betting the money. So there you have it, and you will be able to follow this whole thing, right? You will be able to follow this whole thing and see what happens. And I think it's worth, it's a good bet. I really like it because there's not much I can do to trick this thing other than to outperform. And why I'm doing this? Because I think we can. I think it's a very important endeavor here, not just to make money, but to actually do something incredibly important with exactly this here. to turn the AI revolution into steady high income. And I tell you guys, most people in finance don't even understand what I'm doing here because they think the wrong way. They think as greedy little piggies. They think, oh, I want to rip people off. I want to make fees. I want to make these funds. I'm not interested in that. What I want to do is I want to build the infrastructure, the financial infrastructure that solves the biggest problem of our time. And that biggest problem of our time is how we can actually turn the AI revolution into steady high income for potentially everyone. And no one is really working on that because the only people who could be working on it are too greedy. They don't want to do that. And I think this is very important. We need to stabilize and buffer out the volatility of that crazy thing. You know all about Tesla. You know what NVDA. You know what Micron Technologies. You know what Palantir, MicroStrategy, and Bitcoin. This is all fun and games. But the first time your stock crashes 50% and you have to explain to your wife, where's our millions of dollars, it's just not fun. It is good if you have too much money and you can put it all high risk. Like Chris Camillo says, you're crazy, I lose it all portfolio, which often makes more money than anything else, by the way, but only long term. But most people can't do that. They need income. And so this is our way of contributing to that most important endeavor that most people don't even work on. And I think we can win. And if you do this, it's going to be the biggest financial infrastructure, the biggest financial product that was ever invented on the face of the earth. That's exactly what we are trying to do here. So I hope that was interesting. Let's see. Are there any questions here? Oh, a lot. Let's see. Quantgene. Yes, exactly. Quantgene, that was quite something. Is quite something. Germany, creating alpha. Can you talk what happened to the biotech you raised 20 million? Well, that's a different story. We made a lot of money throughout COVID, but that also put a lot of stress on the company. Robots increased GDP. Exactly. $1 million. Groovy. That is true. Tesla won't hit 500 before end of this month. That's probably true. So some options. Everyone should Google Joe for biotech. Any interest in 410 strike price? 410 strike price for June 2027. I don't know what the premium on this is right now. I'm playing this mostly through short in the money puts right now because I don't like this. What if losses in the year exceeds the 200,000 buffer? Well, it's not even losses in the year. Of course, if we can lose money on this whole thing, there's no doubt, right? If we miss that, then everyone loses money, including me. But I'm losing the 200,000 not if we lose money. I'm losing it if we don't make 30%. That's very important. So anything below 30% return eats the buffer away. The new Gary Black, I don't think so. New scam. Well, you guys have to understand one thing. I don't like scams. I'm bigly opposed to scams. I think it's a disease, especially in America, that everyone thinks everyone else is a scammer and that there are actually too many scammers. And I have a very simple business model here. What if we are not a scam? Because if you look at most funds and most financial instruments are actually kind of scammy. Even though the ones that are legitimate, there is like a scammy taste to this whole thing. And I tell you guys, one of the biggest business models is just don't do it. Why? Who is the bear? I think the bear is a little annoying. The bear. Any more questions? We have more stuff to talk about today. But while Tesla is completely disrupting one of the largest markets on the planet, we are here counting individual robotaxis. Thought that was somehow funny. Well, we have to. The robotaxis are the key. I have Yeah, the bear was just the bear. He was a little scammer himself. Explain the mechanics. Well, I have another video out, and you can also go to the website and check out the terms, but the mechanics, I will not go too deep into the mechanics. There will be a buffer, and that buffer basically gets filled when we exceed 30%, and that will be filled every quarter as a settlement date, where we actually see if in that quarter we exceeded 30%, and then half of the excess over 30% can go into the buffer, and 100% over 45% goes into the buffer, and then it gets fed back into the bond if we underperform from that buffer. If the buffer gets eaten up and we don't make 30%, then you actually don't make 30%. And the buffer gets pre-filled with 200,000. Time horizon is 3 years. So for Americans, there will be an option to, because it will go through a feeder LLC. So there will be an option if there's an investor in the feeder LLC that is a special purpose vehicle that just acquires these Luxembourg bonds for everyone who has shares in the LLC. So it's kind of a pass-through vehicle. But you can basically also tell the manager of the LLC you want to sell before the 3 years. So 3-year maturity of the bond, LLC buys the bonds in the US. That's a mechanism for US investors. And if you want to get out of the LLC before, you can tell the manager, okay, I want to sell my shares. And the manager is then going to try to find someone who wants to buy the shares for whatever they are worth based on the bonds. Hi, Joe. Will be the chance for us who does not have 25K, single loving father of 11 years of twin. That's so cute. Tahoe. Are you in Tahoe? I can't talk too much about that, but we are working on more things coming up. Yes. But there are regulations around what I can say and what not. But of course, this is a long-term strategy, and as quickly as possible, we want to make it more accessible. What do you think of robotaxi expansion to Dallas and Houston? Well, I have a video recorded. My editor's on it. Maybe it comes out today. So just stay tuned. I cover that whole thing because I think it's potentially huge, but there's a lot to say about this. I think we basically now entering this thing where we could go to the moon. What is that? It's not a stunt, guys. You can download the terms. This is definitely not a stunt. And you can follow me. I'm also on YouTube, so stunts are very difficult to pull off if you're public. Tesla is moving only a couple model years and no cyber caps in tiny geozones in Houston, Dallas to create type for the earnings call. Announcing nothing would have been better. I disagree. I think we are onto something with Tesla, but you have to be cautious, of course, because you never know when the inflection happens. But in my opinion, we are now in a territory where this inflection can actually happen. And there's upside risk, right? So it could take another 6 months. It could take another 9 months before we scale, but it can also happen right away. So that is the challenge here when it comes to trading this whole thing, that we have to be very smart in how we go about this. Pioneerlands, we have to go to some questions. Let's see if we have questions today. Oh, we didn't update this. Oh yeah, we have questions. Oh my God, this is a difficult question. I think, did we have this question last time? I think this is the question we need to answer today. Let's see. They will never just let the cyber caps rotting somewhere until Christmas. It is, we have to be cautious. I think it is the start. It's a very big deal. And we have this question here from Peter. You mentioned a month or so ago you're out of leaps. I am still out of leaps. Recently, you predict Tesla to go to 500 plus without much of a catalyst. No, I said 490 all-time highs. What I said is, when you look at the Tesla chart, right, you see that we are basically approaching all-time highs. Not approaching all-time. That we were at all-time highs December 16th, 4 months ago, roughly. So why were we at all-time highs? Well, because the market was at all-time highs. It's again at all-time highs, the market. Tesla is lagging. What happened to Tesla, the company, since December 16th? Tesla is a much better company. We have fulfilled the promise of 14.3 FSD. We have fulfilled Robotaxi. We have now gone all into AI5. I have a video coming out, also recorded today, coming out probably tomorrow, on AI5 and what that actually means. Tesla is going to be the largest chip manufacturer in the world in a very short period of time. Not with Terafab, but before. In terms of number of chips produced, not in terms of beating NVIDIA's margin, of course. So Cybercab scaling as planned. FSD 14.3 slightly delayed, but out. AI5 done. These are enormous achievements that happened between now and back in December 16th, all-time highs. That is why I'm saying, in my opinion, if the market keeps being strong, we can go back to all-time highs without a catalyst. Okay? That is what's happening. And that's why I'm so bullish on Tesla right now, really tactically super bullish. On top of that, we have a potential super catalyst coming up if Robotaxi scales. Then we can go to whatever, to the moon. So that is a beautiful setup right now. We have to watch Iran and what's happening, because you know the strait is closed again, because what was it? The US actually decided to not open the blockade, which is weird. That's basically a violation, in my opinion, of the ceasefire. So Iran then attacked the ship and says, no, now we are closing the strait. Now Trump just said, oh, we are going to go back to Pakistan to have more negotiations, which is very bullish again. So we have bearish impact, strait is closed, very bad for the markets. Then Trump today is saying, oh, but we are going back to Pakistan negotiating, very good for markets. So what happens tomorrow? I don't know. The markets probably won't react much, in my opinion. You know my opinion. I think Iran is over. I took a very clear stance on this. I think Iran is over, which is a very important call from my side, which means very important. If I'm right, it's super bullish. If I'm wrong, we get hit. So it is very important to form an opinion on macro, on Iran. But I think all signs are this is over. Trump cannot afford this conflict to continue, and I think it's over. That's what I think. We still have to watch out. Being wrong is very expensive. But if Iran is over, then Tesla would be in an incredibly bullish situation. But as we have seen over the last few days, you cannot miss out on these runs, right? We can be in 490 in 3 days. Don't forget. We are very close. We are only 90 away from 490, right? That is only 20% up. That happens in 4 days. Could happen. Could also not happen. But what I'm saying is you can't miss out these runs. So, okay, because if we go to 490 without Robotaxi scaling much more, then it's time to sell some, covered calls potentially, because then we are probably going to drop back. So right now it's a Goldilocks moment, because both technical rebounds to 490 are very likely. Plus we have constantly this Robotaxi there, scaling option. Once we had 490, things get much more risky, because then we are solely dependent on this hard catalyst, actually. So there you have it. That's the situation. So is that the right time to get into leaps? It's a good question, because I have 2 instruments at my disposal. The reason we have alpha roll strategies, leaps, right? The reason we have these alpha roll, lightest diffil says Iran just reject the second round of negotiations. Let's see. Iran is also not in the strongest, but I think both the US and Iran are not in the strongest position. But Joe doesn't like spending money, so he has no car. That's right. Right now I don't have a car because I'm moving too much. Do you drive a Tesla? No, but I'm surrounded by Teslas. They will never just let the cyber cap run. Okay, so here's my take on this whole situation. What do you do in a situation like this where you're super bullish? You have two options, or I have two options. I'm not telling you guys what to do. This is all very dangerous. I like leaps in very specific situations. I like leaps when the stock is clearly massively undervalued and we have likely a run-up coming up in the next few months, but also we still have downside risk that is significant. The advantage of leaps versus the other option I'm going to explain in a second that I use actually right now instead of leaps. The advantage of leaps over the second option, no pun intended, is that leaps don't put you in any kind of margin problem. So if you're wrong on the tactics of the move, you buy leaps and then the stock drops another 20%. Who cares? Yeah, you lose massive amounts paper value, but you're not getting killed because there's no margin required. So that's pretty good. So leaps give you downside buffer, but they have one disadvantage, of course, that they eat up time value and they have limited leverage because they're also expensive, depending on what you buy. So that's what you have to understand. The other option that is much more brutal, but gives you enormous upside is short in the money puts, right? Instead of buying long-term calls, you can also buy short-term puts and put them relatively deep in the money. So if 400, you're selling 410, 420 puts weekly. And then if something happens, if you have a big run, you can also add more to them, right? If you sell 410, I have a good chunk through earnings. That's actually my strategy because you get so much premium. I'm selling 410 puts. Risky. You have to know exactly what you do and you need to size that exactly because earnings can always drop the stock by 5% or something. And then you are back to 380. And can you survive that? That's the question because that hits your margin hard. But the advantage of these puts are that they give you enormous money to the upside, much more than the calls, right? If you have 10 puts or 20 puts or whatever, put contracts versus 20 call contracts, of course, the puts give you much more money because they churn through this entire thing brutally. They have the premium. So if you sell 410 puts, they probably give you whatever they give you right now, $15 for this Friday, maybe $16, $17. So you get $7 free, which is a lot. So even if Tesla would crash $7 in earnings, you still make money. So that's crazy. The disadvantage of leaps, of course, especially right now before earnings, is you get this hit every time you have earnings. If your leap is 5 earnings out or 6 earnings out, these earnings have all volatility built in. So if you go through earnings with your leaps, you just take out 1/6 or 1/5 of your entire volatility premium of these earnings, which is a lot. So the puts give you free premium, the calls cost you premium. Short puts, much more premium efficient than long calls, of course. So what is the main disadvantage of these short puts? I mean, you guys know all about it. If you do short puts, you're at high risk for downside, right? You get destroyed if it goes wrong. So you have to be a little cautious. Do you think we will have substantial income from at least one city by June of 2027? Well, Harry, good question. I'm planning to sell long puts. What do you mean long puts for the rest of this month? So you're selling puts. I don't know what selling long puts is confusing. What is the downside risk over upcoming earnings? Well, I don't think there's too much downside risk, to be honest. This is such a story stock at this point. The actual earnings don't matter too much. I think downside risk is really mitigated to 5% or something, because why would it drop more unless they say something incredibly stupid, which they won't. So I think the downside risk is also very limited. I think, The most likely outcome, I think there's always upside risk is much stronger than downside risk. Elon says something crazy bullish, but most likely earnings, are like a non-mover. I think that's the most likely. We're going up or down 1% or something. Premium distraction. Do you think we will have substantial income from at least one city by June of 2027? I don't think that matters too much. I think once FSD really works and we start the rollout of unsupervised, we will have, once we hit this 10,000 robotaxis or something, first of all, then you have very substantial income. And it doesn't even matter too much. Once you really start scaling these things to thousands and tens of thousands, the stock will go to 1,000. I'm very convinced of that. So the question is more, will it? That's the question we have to ask, will it or not? So that is my situation, but I'm very, I have to tell you guys one story. Market Wizards, the best book you should read if you're into trading. Market Wizards is a book. There are 2 books on this, where a dude who always wanted to be a trader and never really made it interviews the world's best traders, like the not institutional people, but people who are actually good at this stuff, and they always trade just their money, and they tell them the story. And there's one story of this one guy in the crash, 2008 crash, and he recalls that this guy told his friend, "Oh, I'm all in, or I'm super exposed." On Friday night, he couldn't sleep because he knew Monday the markets are opening and it's going to be a disaster. And he was super scared and he was going to lose all his money. And then the market actually went down, 9% or 10%, some crazy Black Monday situation. And then he called this friend up on Monday night and said, "Are you okay? Are you going to, kill yourself?" And the guy said, "No, I'm actually very okay. Because over the weekend, instead of watching my position and being attached to it and clinging to my position, I realized it's just game over. This is like the end of the world." And so he flipped his entire position to short and made a killing. And so that mental flexibility is very important when it comes to these tactical options things. So when I'm telling you I'm into short puts in the money, I have to watch the situation and I might switch to leaps, right? It depends, but my instinct is I want to not hold leaps through earnings. This is just a complete burn of premiums that I don't like. But once the earnings are over next week, I will look at leaps very strongly, as the president says, right? I think then it's leap time. I just don't like leaps right now. I'd rather have short puts, because if you have short puts, the odds that earnings lead to a massive run-up, leaps would be better for a massive run-up. But the odds that the earnings are again like a non-event, I think are higher than not. Here's how I see it. I think there is a 60% chance the earnings are total non-event, like plus minus 1%. And then there is a 30% chance or 20% chance maybe that we have a strong run-up, which is bad for short puts. I mean, you still make a lot of money, but if we go to 430 after earnings, it's a little high, but who knows? If you go to 430 after earnings and you sold 410 puts, you're missing out, right? You get $17, but you could have gotten much more. And then there is like a small risk that it's disappointing and we go down 5%. And then if it stays even, short puts are a complete winner, right? That's what you want. You can do the math, right? If I'm selling 410 short puts, my ideal outcome is 410, obviously. But if you stay at 400 flat or go slightly up, that's also a total win for the short puts. And there's a loss for the leaps. Even if you go to 410, might be a loss for the leaps. It's a win for the leaps if you go to 430, then the leaps win over the short puts. But that's the only scenario where they win over short puts. If we go down, now that's bad for the short puts, but it's even worse for the leaps. Do you understand? You have to always, when it comes to options, the best way to think about options is, what is the position you're envisioning? What is the alternative position? Should you buy 10 contracts leaps, or should you sell 10 contracts puts in the money? And people always get confused, like, oh, blah, 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 and deltas and betas and all kinds of stuff, gammas. Just think about outcomes. Just think about, okay, what happens if Tesla goes to 410 after earnings? What happens if it goes to 400? What happens if it goes to 390, 380, 420, 430? Where am I at with these positions? And if you do that, I don't do that anymore formally because I just know it. But if you go to 430, leaps were the winner. But everything below 430, the short puts are the winner. Unless it goes to 350, then puts kill you. So that's what you have to consider. And in my opinion, the risk of going below 385 in earnings is just incredibly low, incredibly low. The risk that we are going to 430 or more, pretty low. Not as low, but also low. The odds that we are staying exactly where we are going into earnings is the highest. The odds that we go slightly higher is the second highest. The odds that we go slightly lower is the third highest. So in all these scenarios, I win with short puts over leaps. Now, once earnings are over, then it gets more tricky. Then leaps might make sense. Leaps are beautiful when we think, okay, now we are in the range of this crazy run-up that might be coming. We are in a 3-month range of a real run-up. Leaps are basically very good when there's a major run-up, because major run-ups are hard to capture with short puts. Because short puts, you want to be close to the money. You don't want to sell a 490 short put because it puts a lot of, that's effectively taking on the stock on margin. And that's just annoying and risky. So my short put strategy is always to build in significant free premium buffer. That's what wins, right? Always like $5-10 of free premium, because then you constantly make money. And you buy that buffer of free premium by being relatively close to the money. And the deal with the devil here is that if you have a major run up, you are getting stressed out because you're losing out on all this upside because you're at the money. So your puts just can't make that much money. And so if you have a major run up from 420 to 600 or something, and you're in leaps, you just completely win. So that's kind of what you have to consider. I just don't like the earnings situation for leaps. Is your goal not to get assigned? Yes, I never want to get assigned. If I get assigned, I just sell the shares immediately. My entire short put strategy or short call is never to get any assignment. I never want to get assigned. If I want to have more stocks, I buy more stocks. A leap trading is a long-term equity. Yeah, leaps just mean call options. You go long calls, and the only specific here is that leaps are long-running calls. So, calls that expire in 18 months or more. I don't even like 12 months. There's too much time decay. So 18 months or more, that's ideally a leap. I have a short puts. Is that even legal? What's not legal? Odds are that the earnings result in nothing or a drop. Yes, exactly. Well, I would say these earnings are more likely to result in nothing or in a little bit up, and then third, a drop. This time it's a little reversed. But neither up nor drop very likely to be large. What is legal? I still have questions, yes. I'm playing the wheel, so I'm fine with getting assigned to buy. And I sell my imaginary shares on margin and collect more premium. Yes. Okay, so we have more questions. Let's go to the questions. Here. Do we know how Elon will make ASML deliver? Well, that's a very complicated question. Moin Moin, there we have a German. From Pioneerlands, Michael Solomon. Anastasia Nozova just made a video she's great, by the way, revealing 3 important numbers. Based upon whatever NVIDIA is getting out of TSMC, a normal fab with 15 to 20 ASML machines can produce about 40 gigawatts per year. So we do need 375 to 550 machines where ASML is as of now churning out just 50 per year. scale their business up. Well, first of all, I don't think that is true. We have to consider that NVIDIA has probably something much more complicated than Tesla needs. So I don't know exactly how this translates into ASML fab capacity. But as a general rule, the genius here, the genius is that we are talking about vertically integrated inference stacks. To just give you a feel for it, I forgot the exact numbers, but if you have chips, for example, that have burned the LLM on the chip, they can be like 10,000 times more efficient than NVIDIA, 10,000 times more tokens per energy. Just for you guys to understand what's possible with having more dedicated vertical stacks. So if you burn the LLM, the actual model onto the chip, you have a massive explosion of capability, but of course the chip is then completely locked, right, for the model. So that's on one extreme of this of the scale. On the other extreme, you have NVIDIA, which can do everything with a chip. So it's a universal chip, even training. And I assume, and Tesla is clearly in the middle because Tesla only wants inference, right? This is a whole hack that Elon has, that he can build vertically integrated inference-only chips or stacks with model optimization and all kinds of stuff on it. And that creates enormous efficiencies and can beat NVIDIA effectively because the use case is much more narrow. Now, I'm sure, I would guarantee that this also translates into much more effective use of the ASML machines. So you can't just translate this one-on-one. But I don't know what the ratio is. I don't know if it's, if it gets you twice as much as NVIDIA out of a TSMC capacity, or 4 times, or 1,000 times, or just 10%. I don't know exactly. I just know it's much more. So we have to see how this goes. And in general, it's a good question. It's a very good question how this bottleneck, upstream bottleneck, is being resolved with ASML. I don't have a full answer, but I can just guarantee you that this calculation is overestimating how much Elon needs because of that simplification that we have. So let's see. Do you sell weekly options? Yes, I'm totally into weekly options. Joe, quick summary of alpha next week. You mean of alpha results or the structure, Chomsky? What options mistakes did you make early in your career? Oh, that's a long story. I can tell you what I made many mistakes. So I tell you the problem with options. With options, it's extremely easy. Once you start doing options, it's extremely easy to make a lot of money. That is the secret with options. Extremely easy to make a lot of money, but it's extremely hard to not lose that money down the line. And that is the typical experience of most people I know who get into options, that, initially like, oh, I had 100,000, now I have 1 million, now I have 2 million, now I have 8 million. Yeah, and then you are completely you're in the zone. But the problem is you don't understand the risk you're actually taking, and then next thing you know, you wake up and your 8 million turn into 0. I'm not even kidding. This happens to basically everyone. And so you're going in the right way of your life, and then you lose it all. That happened to me twice. Can you even imagine that? A long time ago. And so I learned my lesson. You have to not give in to the temptation. You have to basically look through all that noise and stuff, and you have to only see, it's like the Matrix. At some point, you see the Matrix. You only see the numbers. You don't see the fake anymore. So I'm never tempted by any options. I'm never tempted by this stuff anymore. The only thing I see is my prediction of reality and my prediction of the stock price. You have to completely look through all the options. You have to say, all of that stuff doesn't matter. The only thing I focus on is Tesla or NVIDIA or MicroStrategy, whatever my underlying is. I spot an opportunity and say, I am quite sure this stock is going to go up or down or whatever, based on what I know about the stock, the technicals, the fundamentals, and most importantly, the macro situation, the markets. The markets are very important with this. And then I measure like how clear do I see the opportunity? What is my level of confidence on that? What is the risk scenarios around the stock movement? It's all about the stock. It's all about what is my confidence that I'm sure Tesla will do something next week to the downside, the upside, or to no side. And I got very good at that. I just know exactly what I know. I know exactly my confidence level. I know exactly how much I know that. And only then, when I have a clear thesis for this week, and sometimes I have a thesis for the next 3 months, right? That's why we are talking about these probabilistic layers of robotaxi. Once you have a clear vision and thesis of your stock, you need to have any stock as a reference. You need to have high confidence in something, right? Don't force it. If you ask me like, but where will Tesla be next week? It's like, maybe I know, maybe I don't know. You have to assess, do I know that this week or not? This week, I'm quite sure that the downside is limited, that the upside has a long tail risk, that it goes very high, but not likely. And the most likely is it stays kind of flat and just hovers around. That is clear for these earnings, because how would it even drop a lot? Of course, you have to overlay Iran, right? You have to overlay macro. That is the one thing that could drop it a lot. But on Iran, I'm also pretty sure right now, at least, that no one can afford an escalation. Even Iran doesn't really want to escalate anymore, and Trump for sure can't afford it. There's always risk. Let's watch it, but that's what I'm thinking. So I have a high confidence that the drop cannot be too great. And if that's true, you can take on some risk for short puts, right? So once you have your clear view of the stock and you decide you have a clear view, then you can structure your option strategy around that potential outcome in these scenarios. That's why I'm a very unusual options trader, because I'm not an options trader. I just understand options very, very well. I have a very strong intuition on option pricing, which sounds like stupid, but you need it, right? Because there's so many opportunities that I have a very good quantitative intuition what I need to do if I assume a certain outcome. But the way I'm using options, I'm deploying options, is always based on a clear view of the stock. And then the options are just a tool, right? So I never care about the options themselves. I'm just, okay, if that is the outcome, and here's the probabilistic, the Bayesian layers for the other scenarios, how do I then model the options around it to harvest the most alpha with the best risk? BTC is crashing now. Well, falling below 400 is not very hard for Tesla. It is at 400. Is it crashing? It's not crashing. Bitcoin is at 74,870. So it's down 1.29% for 1 day. It's up 0.9% over 5 days. So it's not crashing. I wouldn't call this crashing. But yeah, it's going down. Let's see. I think it's a little unclear. I have to read the latest on Iran. The last thing I heard is that Trump was reiterating that he wants to meet in Pakistan again, which is positive. Closing of Strait was negative, and now something else happens. Hello from Europe, not Jupiter's moon. Oh, the other Europe. Very good. Regarding ASML shortage, this is another benefit to partnership with Intel. They can leverage Intel's ability to get those limited ASML machines. Well, maybe. I think there are many opportunities with Intel, but Tesla has a lot of leverage too. With weekly and 45-day income option strategies, it's mostly just doing the rational thing and not losing lots when you chicken out. I don't like 45, because the world is very crazy, and I don't like to be locked in with any kind of short, I don't want to have any 45-day bets. I either have 18 months bets because that's easy, or weekly bets because that's easy to pivot. I use the BTX trender and Joe's predictions to decide what weekly and 45-day options to sell. Interesting. I mean, the BTX trender was definitely not in line with me, and I was more right over the last week, much more right on Tesla. but it's good to blend like different things. The BTX trend is a little lagging in my opinion. I'm year to date break even on rolling my 3 put shorts, even the bear market we had. Yeah, exactly. Marco, YOLO, very interesting. Even if you're short puts in this bad bear market, you can still be break even, right? Exactly, if you do it right. Hi from UK. Do you think it's time to open a position on Stridge? Stretch. What is? I was confused. Is it stretch? This is like given the Clarity Act is about to face. Do you mean MSTR like MicroStrategy, or STRG is like the lower yield preferred? I know stretch, but not this one. I am into MicroStrategy. I think yes, absolutely, but I'm going into common. I think Intel is OOD strategy, but I'm not sure they have 2 nanometer solution for Terafab. Czechia, the Czech Republic, a beautiful place. Big event at Tesla on 420 this Monday. Yes. Yeah, strategy. Strategy is my 3rd largest position. NVIDIA larger, but I like strategy more. And then, of course, Tesla by far the largest. I have a little bit of Robinhood too. That does pretty well right now. BTX trender is lagging, but it's good for deciding when to enter into selling calls and puts. Yeah, I think it cannot hurt. I think BTX trender is always interesting to watch. I'm not against it. We have a 420 event. Do you consider technicals with your stock thesis when selling options? I mean, you have to be very cautious with technicals. It's mostly astrology, but I'm always watching it. And technicals tell you some things. You just have to understand what they fundamentally mean. Like, what is the fundamental backing of technicals actually? For example, if Tesla goes to 490 all-time highs, we know that the market has appetite for Tesla based on fantasies and not facts up to 490. So then you can reason, well, if the market has appetite up to 490 when it's in a good mood for Tesla fantasies, and now we have more evidence that these fantasies actually become true, then it can easily go back to 490 if the market is also at all-time highs. That's how I use technicals. Or with Bitcoin, if you look at the chart, I mean, there's some logic to it. If it bottoms out at 64,000, and that is exactly where before there was like a little flat line, then okay, it's probably some secret mechanism behind the scenes that keeps it roughly there. Or as resistance. So these things are real. You just have to be cautious because they're weak, real, right? They can at any point get overridden. So I have my own way of viewing technicals where I'm like very cautious, not overdo all these crazy charts. I just look at the chart. It's like, well, what would your intuition tell you if you understand that all these resistance levels are actually real, market behavior behind it, like how many people buy and sell and are willing to buy and are willing to sell. And then when you combine it with fundamentals, I think these certain levels can tell you something. And it's basically, you have to always approach it with a Bayesian brain. It's like, well, I just store it as a potential Bayesian probability that is added. That's what's happening. Okay, what else do we have going on? We don't have too many questions. We don't have 4 questions because I actually responded to these 2, but I forgot to. We had this last Sunday. I forgot to clean them out. Oh, now we get to the most important thing. With all that $1 million bet, I want to tell you guys more about Draupnir. Are we even ready to launch this? I think so. We should be ready. You can go here. We're actually launching. Let's click user so you guys don't see all the back end. User doesn't work yet. We have an agent system. We are bringing OpenClaw and making it, it works. And we are making it accessible to everyone. You will get some, if you're a citizen of Pioneerlands, we will give you free tokens, even though we have to pay for it. But in your citizen fee, we include some tokens. And what Draupnir is, and you see where you go to Pioneerlands, and then you have Draupnir here. Draupnir is the magic ring of Odin that multiplies every week for free. So that is what it is. We gave it some Nordic names here. We can upgrade this at some point. But this is a new agent system because it's actually not easy to install OpenClaw and get it all done. It's very confusing, and it's a little. We want to give you guys a system where you can just jump on and start working, and you can buy more credits. I hope here. Exactly, you can buy more credits if you want. It's more or less a pass through with a little bit of. We're taking a little fee on top of it to pay our people who have to handle all your stuff. But for citizens, you will get some free tokens. If you don't, then message us. This is still very beta, and so there might be issues. But I just wanted everyone to have the ability to actually experience these agents. Because if you use Claude or Grok or whatever, you have no idea how extremely powerful these agents are. And these agents are using also Claude. We have God mode, and then we have training mode. So God mode, for those of you who are technical, God mode is actually Claude, very expensive for us. That's why your tokens get eaten up in God mode much more. Training mode are some other models, including DeepSeek, that are much cheaper. So they eat up less tokens. So basically, you can get used to the system with training mode. But once you have your mission ready, switch to God mode, spend more tokens, and you get the problem solved. Now, agents, I don't know how much everyone knows about agents. They're like a miracle. They can do anything. They can edit your videos. They can build your investment banking sheets. They can do your taxes. They can do all kinds of things that normally eyes can't, because agents are basically more intelligent and have metacognition, right? They're like Claude, but they are digesting everything, and they're directing Claude, and they're managing that to the goal. And we have different agents here, and we will cover this now every week because this is a complex product. I just believe it's the ultimate empowerment for Pioneerlands, for the pioneers, because now you can do it whatever you want. We have a legal expert, product and strategy, general assistant, data and strategy. This is finance. We have writing and content, research analysis, coding and engineering. So I can just recommend, especially the citizens who get free tokens, to just try it out and see what happens. And that helps us debug it. You can always talk to us here. And I'm very excited about it. The team is now using this, so we are fine-tuning it. It will be very interesting what is going to happen with Draupnir. Thank you, ZH2000 USA. That's a hard to pronounce name, but I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys. I have to go. Boys are waiting for me. Tao Rock, great to meet you. Yeah, you guys should check out Draupnir and Pioneer Alpha. And this is going to be very exciting. I tell you, there's a huge revolution going on with AI. These agents are absolutely mind-boggling. Here we have a system that's a one-click system for the pioneers to just use agents without having to install all that stuff. Let's see how it goes. I really am looking forward to your feedback. Like, I'm sure there will be bugs and all kinds of issues, but you will have our full attention here because no one uses it right now. I'm just launching it as we speak. I have to check with Alex if it's actually even open, but try it out and let us know. If not, we will make it open. And if you don't have any tokens and you're a citizen, that's a bug, then let us know. I will talk to Alex. We have to fine-tune this. And I tell you, it's a total revolution. These things can do anything. I tell you, you have to push them. You tell them what you want. If you have any Excel chart stuff, I mean, I just did a Tesla investment banking model. I used my model and reformatted it. Crazy. We're now hiring people to actually work with the agents to get all kinds of stuff done. Video editing, short editing, investment banking models, stock models. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame, I tell you. So, looking forward to your feedback. You can always DM me on X, leave your comments, and the future will be great. Thank you so much for watching. Test out Draupnir at pioneerlands.org. down here. Go to pioneeralpha.org if you want to know more about the Pioneer Bond and my bet. And then we will go from here. So hope that was interesting. See you very soon and enjoy your beautiful Sunday. We were apps using both codecs and cloud code. One runs out of token, another one continues. They share the same source code. Pretty cool. Absolutely. See you guys. Until next week in the Pioneer Academy. Bye-bye.